All right. Welcome back to KP Unpacked. This is my opportunity to ask KP Reddy what he meant or what he was thinking about or what inspired his latest post on LinkedIn. My name is Jeff Eccles. I am the head of mastermind groups and the incubator at KP Reddy Company. And as always, I am joined by our founder and CEO, KP Reddy. KP, welcome back.
Hey Jeff, how's it going?
It's going well. It's fun to get back into recording these unpacked sessions because you post so much on LinkedIn. You get so much engagement on LinkedIn. The things that you put there in your account on your page are thought provoking. They're challenging. Sometimes they stir the pot, which is of course the point. And so it's a lot of fun to come here and ask you, what were you thinking when you posted that? Now, for this session, we're going to take a little bit. I mean, you've posted about this, but we're going to take a slight tangent to that, or maybe it's an umbrella of several posts, and we're going to talk about the executive briefing that we hosted as we record this. It was a couple of weeks ago in Miami, Florida, and so to give folks a little bit of background regarding the executive briefing, we teamed up with Schneider Electric and we invited 50 CEOs or C-suite leaders from all across AEC to join us for what we called an executive briefing. So KP, in your mind, as you came up with this idea for the executive briefing, as it started to formulate, and we made invitation lists and all the things that have to go into creating an event like that, what was the impetus for that event, and what was it meant to be? And then of course we can unpack what it was.
I think the mission of it was this whole idea that within the AC space, there's somebody that's at the table that we don't talk much about, which is the owner, i.e., everybody's customer. And when it comes to innovation, when it comes to what they're thinking, um, whether it's popular or not, if you're an architect or an engineer or a contractor, and you're dealing with an owner, you are what they call a vendor. So it's very difficult for owners to share strategic viewpoints with the vendor, mostly because a lot of times they feel like it might get exploited. It's a relationship, but they have relationships with other firms. So they have to be really careful about how much they share with any given vendor. And I know AEC firms hate to think of themselves as vendors and that they have a vendor
Exactly.
number and a procurement system, but guess what,
Exactly. Yeah.
guys? That's what it is.
Yep.
And so the goal was really to provide a forum for owners to share um, where they think things are going, what's happening with innovation. In this case, we talked a lot about energy management and energy generation and how it was affecting them. And I think one of the things that is commonly, it's no big secret, data centers are kind of in a boom market right now, lots of data centers. We were also unsure how data centers, how we're going to, produce enough electricity to feed these data centers. But in the meantime, identifying other markets that are equally energy hungry and really think about, what we're going to do with those as well. So we had leaders, owners from the biotech world, from the cold chain world, from the data center world. And then we talked about energy, we talked about water, we talked about kind of the big topics. And really the hope was to get owners to open up about what's on their mind and what their needs are. And I think that was achieved and um, really received well.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know if I told you this, but so for those of you that were not in attendance at the executive briefing, my job is relatively easy. I'm the MC for most of our, or maybe all of our live events and also our virtual events. And so all I have to do is get up on stage and introduce new topics and new speakers and things like that. And then I get to go to the back of the room and listen. And so one of the things that I did as I was listening throughout the day to KP and others. We had panel discussions, we had keynotes. KP hosted several fireside chats. That was sort of the format of the day. But as I stood in the back of the room and listened, I sent a few text messages to some of my friends, especially my background. For those of you that don't know, my background is architecture. So I know a lot of people. My people are in the architecture world. So I sent out some texts. I said, you know what, this event is not for you, right? It was for you know large C-suite leaders at large firms across AEC and owners as well. And so the texts I were sending were to people who weren't those. They weren't the target audience, right? But what I did was I sent texts and I said, if every architect, large, small, or otherwise, heard what was being discussed here, heard what owners were saying from stage, and embraced it, understood it, and embraced it, and incorporated it into their thinking about their business model, it would change the face of AEC. And I stand by that. I think that's absolutely the truth. What the owners were saying about what they wanted, what they needed, what they saw as value coming from the vendor side, from the A&E side, and also the C side. Um, I think everybody needs to hear that. So you were up there on stage a lot. What did you think about the conversations?
No, I think these are the conversations that are very difficult to have in the middle of the throes of getting a project done. When owner brings in a contractor and asks the question, hey, we're 2 weeks behind schedule and over budget. Oh, by the way, what do you think about innovation? What do you think about where the world's going? Right? These are conversations that I would say you don't have a great forum on a day-to-day basis to have. And so I think it was definitely owners opening up about what their needs are. And I think the interesting thing was that the people that in attendance, in many ways, seemed surprised by what the customer needs were.
Yeah.
And so I think that's super interesting, right? Not that the for us maybe we thought some of what they were saying was somewhat obvious because of all the
Mhm.
conversations we have with a lot of owners, but to some of the ENR 500 that were in the room, for them to be surprised by what owners were saying was a bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to say that exact same thing. The surprise was surprising.
Hmm.
Right? How do you not understand that this owner who says, we built 50 of these facilities this year, and admittedly that was too much, right? That came straight out of the owner's mouth. We built 50 of these facilities this year, and we spend an awful lot of money procuring professional services, the A's and the E's, and also the construction management. And we have a good handle. We know what the fees are. We know what you want to charge us. We have a decent handle on what it's going to cost to construct this because we did 50 of these this year, right? But why is it that you and all of your design expertise, mechanical engineer, architect, electrical engineer, whoever you are, why is it that you can't help me get a handle on what it's going to cost to operate this thing?
Hmm.
And I mean, that's I botched the quote. It's not a direct quote, but that was straight out of one of the owner's mouths. And yeah, the surprise in the surprise was strong because I think as we look across and I spent 20 some odd over 20 years, 25 years or something like that working in firms. Um, we promoted things like lead, we promoted things like commissioning and um, building science is always a hot topic. I emceed another conference earlier this year where they had a building scientist as a keynote speaker, which is kind of weird. But um, why is it that we talk about all these things, but yet we have no idea? We don't give an owner the ability to understand what it's going to cost for them to operate that facility.
Hmm.
And like you said, I mean, this particular executive briefing was about decarbonization, energy costs. You mentioned water, other types of energy and resources. But these are real questions, right? When we're
Mhm.
talking about the value that AEC is supposed to deliver, and these are the questions that the owners are asking. I mean, this ought to be a day of reckoning.
Mhm. No, 100%. And I think the other thing that was quite fascinating coming out of the owner's mouth was, you know, there was a point that was made that we design buildings assuming historically assuming that energy is available, right? You call the utility up and get all you want. And really, if it wasn't for the constraints from the utility companies about here's how much here's how much power I can deliver to the site, that the thinking hat cap wouldn't go on, right? It's gone on because of scarcity, right? And I say it all the time, innovation is something that is born out of scarcity, right?
Mhm.
Innovation is how you take a scarce resource and create abundance of it. And I think, in the realm of energy, that's exactly what's going on right now is that we're having to think smarter and actually do some hardcore engineering and run analysis and simulation because of the scarcity. But otherwise, if it was just a kind of an infinite tap, I don't think we'd be sharpening our pencil nearly as hard. And I think we had, a company talking about water kind of being the next thing. And we kind of, think about how long we run our water to do our dishes and run 3 loads of clothes a day, like whatever it is. We just act like water just we're gonna open up that tap and there will be water there. And that might be the next one to drop.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. And this wasn't talked about at this particular executive briefing, but where I am here in Indiana, um, I hear stories all the time of somebody that wants to build a distribution plant or whatever it is, in a rural area. They're buying up all the farm fields around here for distributions centers, but um, and then they submit their plans for permitting, and the electrical load required is more than is currently being consumed by the entire county where they want to build this distribution center, right? So these are real world things, and I think the point about water is a good one too. Maybe we take that for granted here in the Midwest, but if you're in the Southwest, certainly that's on your radar. So as we think about, this was a great event. I mean, it's in Miami. There were 50 leaders in the room. We spent a day in all of these discussions, and we had receptions and all the sort of ancillary things that happen at these types of events. It's a fantastic event. The feedback was fantastic. We have four more planned for 2025. So at this point, and we may plan more, but what do we, as we look out towards 2025 and executive briefings, what topics do you expect us to cover next year?
Yeah, I think it's kind of the top of mind. I think the point too is that most of these land kind of on mission for what's important to me and what we're doing. And I think when we look at that, I think affordable housing has to be kind of on the list. I think some of the topics around energy transition, we talked really about energy generation, but I think a little bit, we were mostly talking about decarbonization. So I think as we talk about energy transition, I think that's going to be another fun topic to talk about. Um, I'm really interested in having more conversations around our ailing infrastructure, whether it's roads, bridges, et cetera. But I think that's a big one, and I think we need to have something around with all this kind of the climate impact stuff, whether it's the coastlines rising, whether it's basically you're slightly uninsurable these days in Florida. Um, we know that there's a lot more weather events happening, and how we think about preparedness. So those are some of the ideas that I have. But for us, I kind of pitch my ideas to these corporate partners who either believe in our mission and what we're trying to do, they support us like Schneider does. Schneider was very supportive of this one, and when we um, kind of debated the topics and finally came up with the topics and what we wanted to hear in terms of speakers. And my job's more like, let's figure out what we think is important to the people in the room, and then I run off and try to curate the topics and get the right people to talk on the topics. um, I think a lot of it is just you know, how we get to the right topics is highly driven by some of our mission-oriented partners, like Schneider, that say, "Hey, this is what's important. This is what we think is important. Let's put something together, and we'll support you guys in that effort."
Yeah. So, to me, it's a great system, right? Because we are one of the things that we do in our incubator, or really the main focus of our incubator, is around customer discovery, and that's kind of what's happening here. It's what's important and what do people want to hear about, and so we shape these events around that. So as you look out, the listener, look out towards 2025, keep these things on your radar because they're coming. We'll make announcements about topics and timing. You can imagine that if we're planning 4 of them, they might pop up quarterly. That might be, you might have figured that out by now. But we'll announce the first quarter executive briefing topic and location here very soon. So, KP, what's the best way for somebody to stay to keep executive briefings on their radar?
Yeah, I think the one thing is register with us. Come, contact us, hit us on our website, and contact us, um, because we actually it is invite only. And people ask me all the time, like, what's the criteria? I was like, it depends on the topic, right? If we're talking about 50 people, we're not talking about thousands of people. So I literally go through our list of pre-qualified people in our system and say, okay, I think this person can contribute to an affordable housing discussion. If you design nuclear power plants, I'm probably not inviting you to the affordable housing discussion. So while there's some pre-qualification things that are important in terms of your role in the company, or kind of a leadership position, it's really more like how can you contribute to the conversation based on the topics at hand. If you're affordable housing, and you're a CEO of a large home builder, you're probably getting an invite. So those are the type of topics. That's how we align kind of the topics with the audience. So come to our website and just fill out a contact us form for now, and somebody will vet you and let you know if there's something that comes up. Now, I will say one of the things that's super interesting in doing these is that we have some executives from ENR 50 in the room, and someone asked the question like, well, why would they come to that event and not come to different events? And my point was like, we're not doing product demos. There is no sales pitch. There was no sales pitches. There's nothing to sell. This is literally just kind of think tank conversations. And for a lot of them, I asked them, I was like, hey, thanks for coming. But let me ask you, like, why'd you come? And many of them said this is our job as leaders to come to events like this, learn what the markets are thinking, what the markets are saying, what our peers are saying, and then, go back to the main office and send out an email to those that it matters to about what I learned here. And I think they thought it was very refreshing that there was no pitch, there was not a single software demo, actually very few slides, very few slides. It was
Right.
mostly just conversations. And I think people gave me a hard time because I had like a list of questions printed out on a note card. I was mostly just like sitting on the note card the whole time, and kind of saying like, hey, yeah, I'll get to those questions eventually, but my view is if you're going to get on stage if you haven't done your homework on me, and you're going to show up on stage and think we're going to follow a script, you didn't do your homework, and that's shame on you. So I think the conversations were fantastic.
Yeah, and that's an important point. Think tank style conversations, right? When you have an event of where the audience is as narrow, I guess, as the focus of this audience, right? Very, very focused, very, very targeted audience. It is all about the engagement. And that's what this
Mhm.
event was completely. No booze, no product demos, no pitches, no nothing. It's about what do we see? What are owners asking for? What do owners see? What do executives and engineering firms, construction firms, architecture firms, what do they see? And let's have that conversation. There were a handful of our members from our innovation leaders mastermind group in attendance for this particular one. Doesn't mean they will be at the next. Like KP said, it depends on the fit, right? But it's all about that level of engagement and those types of conversations, because these are move the needle kind of events. They're not, hey, let's show up and do the golf outing, or let's show up and stroll the trade show floor or something like that. This is a different animal, and I think very successful and very informative for the people that were there.
Yeah, and I think what's really different, because um, it's the no pitch zone, so to speak. There's no sponsors coming up and being on panels. A couple of my startups were on panels, but they were barely allowed to say their company name. They were really only there for their expertise around AI or robotics or whatnot, to really educate and inform people on what was going on. So, unlike most conferences, et cetera, my hope was that zero transactions happened at the conference.
Yeah, that's an
That
unusual goal, right?
Yeah, like I want you guys to get to know each other as people, as humans, and as also like peers, and a network of expertise, and that you walk away a little bit with your head hurting and having learned something. And I think that's always going to be the goal for our events. And unfortunately, we live in a world right now where so many of these events are just so sponsor driven and pay to play driven, and you got to sit through all that. It was kind of funny. We did have um, some of our friends at Schneider, some of the executive leadership in attendance, and they were kind of relieved that they weren't allowed to sell. Like, oh, we actually just get to engage with people. I don't have to like work the room and collect business. Like, absolutely not. You're not allowed to. So I'm not sure what your boss told you, but you're not allowed to. So just go out there and have great conversations and engage with people and walk away having learned something.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. As we were having the planning meetings, no, you don't get to go out and pitch people. That's not the way this works. And to your point, yeah, as you said that, I was thinking that we had two startups on the stage, I believe, if I remember correctly,
Mhm.
and probably the only time that their startup, their company was plugged was me doing the intro
Mhm.
for those folks, for those founders. So yeah, um, few to no slides, all about conversations, all about shaping the future of the AEC industry and the built environment. So really great event, and like we said, I mean, we've got four planned for next year quarterly, and if you're interested, if you want to get on the list to see if there's a match for you and your role and your focus, go to KP Reddy, KPREDDY.co, and you can find out on the contact us. You can find out how to sign up, basically, get more information about those. KP, thanks for joining me for this conversation. A little bit different, KP
Mhm.
Unpacked this time. Like I said at the very beginning, you posted several times, and many of us across the KP Ready Co team and the Schneider team have posted on LinkedIn about the executive briefing from a couple of weeks ago in Miami. So we're, maybe unpacking at a 30,000 foot view in this particular episode. But thanks for joining me. And for all of those who are listening, we'll be back. We do this every week. KP and I sit down and unpack his LinkedIn post. So we'll be back here in another week with the next KP Ready Unpacked.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everybody.
Jeff.